But let's take a look at other matters here. A civil war. Gowon should apologize to Ndigbo for dumping our Buri Accord. And that's coming from Senator Ume. Mr. Tochukwu, let's talk about this matter. It's been close to 3 decades now after the Nigerian Biafran Civil War. The scars are still written all over. Of course, one cannot distill what exactly might be the solution that might make the Southeasterners totally erase that memory from their hearts and their minds. But asking General Gowon to apologize to Ndigbo for going against the Buri Accord, speak to me. Do you think there's a sense in it?
Well, fundamentally, there's some fundamental misunderstanding of the whole thing, because Gowon implemented the Buri Accord. It's just that he didn't implement it word for word as Ojukwu wanted. Primarily, let us understand that the Buri Accord was not an agreement between Ojukwu and Gowon. It was an agreement between the federal government and the regional governments and all the members of the Supreme Military Council. So, after the Buri Accord, Gowon returned home and consulted his advisors, which every sane leader will do. And the advisors had problems with 2 clauses of the agreement. One that said that every region can secede at will, and one that said that federal government under no circumstance can impose a state of emergency in any region, which literally means that the regions are independent. The federal government has no control over them, and they can secede at will.
Wow.
So the advisors say that if you want to retain Nigeria as a corporate body, cancel these 2, or Nigeria will disintegrate the next minute. All the signatories to the Buri Accord accepted Gowon's Decree 8.
And which is?
This Decree 8, which is the implementation of the Buri Accord.
Okay.
But Ojukwu insisted that those 2 clauses is removed must remain. Okay?
Okay.
Ojukwu's advisors, including Hilary Njoku, including his secretary, N.U. advised him to accept Decree 8 because Gowon has gone more than far enough. But since it was the Biafran propaganda, Ojukwu's press machinery that controlled information in Biafra, they lied to us that Gowon did not implement the accord. But Gowon implemented. If you doubt me, Google Decree 8. Decree 8 will tell you that, Google will tell that Decree 8 was the implementation of the Buri Accord. But the masses, like I was telling you earlier, do not think. They follow, and they follow blindly. So many Igbos, even the supposedly knowledgeable, supposedly educated, a senator in the House, because he does not read, they say, if you want to hide anything from a black man, write it in a book. We don't read. He believed the lie that he was told in Biafra. And that's what he's still venting. That's what he's still talking about. Gowon has no apologies to the Igbos. He owes the Igbos no apology. And I'll tell you why.
Please do.
Gowon made the point repeatedly. My colleagues and I will go anywhere in search of peace, as long as nobody tries to dismember Nigeria. If you try to dismember Nigeria, I will fight you. So Gowon made it clear. If you try to secede, I will fight you. It was clear. And history had demonstrated, history has given us the instructive precedents that secession anywhere must lead to war. There was a secessionist attempt in the US. They had the American Civil War. There was an attempt in Congo. There was a war. In Sudan, there was a war. In Ethiopia, there was a war. In Vietnam, there was a war. So history has established that if you want to secede, better be prepared for war.
But the USSR, they all went in their separate ways without no bullets.
They agreed to.
Okay.
It was not one group unilaterally trying to secede.
Okay.
In Yugoslavia, they agreed to. So if Nigerians decide to go their separate ways, there will be no war. Okay. But as long as one ethnic group keep trying to secede on its own, it will always result in war and violence and death. So when Gowon, Ojukwu seceded, he knew what he was in for. And Gowon fought the Igbos, the secessionists. And at the end of the war, Gowon did one thing that was outstanding. It may have been the first time in the history of humanity when a conqueror, instead of lording it ruthlessly, lording it over your defeated enemy, trying to extract your pound of flesh from him, you reached out to him and say, there is no victor and there is no vanquished. I don't think it has ever happened in the history of humanity.
Then if that is the case, why is it that the average Igbo man still feels a little bit of that ghost, going about him? And
I'll tell you why. At the end of the war, Biafra surrendered unconditionally, okay? So the federal government owed us nothing. At the end of the war, my family came from Olu, our last place of refuge in Biafra, returned to Enugu. The truck, the lorry that brought us, dumped us in front of what used to be Kingsway on Okpara Avenue. We were broke and broken. The next day, my father, who was a civil servant, went to his ministry, Ministry of Local Government. They gave him a salary advance of 1 month. That was what they did for all the civil servants in the Eastern region. So what would have been a calamitous kind of hunger, period of hunger, poverty, that 1 month salary allowance advance mitigated it. Through that, you introduce millions of pounds. Then we counted our money into pounds in the economy of Eastern region by paying giving civil servants advance payment. The economy started booming. People could buy books for their children. Tenants could pay rent to their landlords. Igbos would not see that. Gowon came and gave us 20 pounds for whatever you deposited. My father was so broke, he deposited nothing.
But he was still giving 20 pounds? Or it was those that deposited before the war?
We are mixing things.
Okay.
He was giving his salary advance. Everybody employed by the government of Eastern region got his salary advance. Those that work for the federal government, it took a longer time for them to reorganize themselves. They have to go to Lagos, the bureaucracy and all that. But then the Biafran pound, the Ministry of Finance said, deposit your Biafran pounds into the bank. For everyone that deposited his pounds into the bank was given 20 Nigerian pounds. So if you deposited 1 Biafran pound, you got 20 pounds. If you deposited 100,000 Biafran pounds, you got 20 pounds. The Igbos keep lamenting, complaining, but you surrendered unconditionally. There's nothing that said that the federal government should pay you for your worthless piece of paper, your money. And those that did not operate their accounts in Biafra, you had your savings and loan, you ran from Enugu, you didn't operate that savings and loan account while you were in village because you ran away from Enugu, got their money in full. Nene to say that what set his family up after the war was the 6,000 pounds his father had at Barclays Bank that they did not, as savings, they did not operate during the war, that they got it back in full. My uncle, my mother's senior brother, died during the war. And the wife, armed with his bank papers, went to ACB to get the money the husbands had in savings account in full. Igbos won't talk about that. Because of the lingering grip of the Biafran propaganda on our minds. What was the Biafran propaganda? You are hated. There's a design to wipe you out. Everybody hates you. You better fight. If you lose this war, there's a master plan to kill every Igbo man, which was nonsense. As the war ended, the federal forces did not occupy Igbo land. They didn't take our land. They didn't convert us to Islam.
They withdrew.
They withdrew. And lives continued. So all the Ojukwu's propaganda was falsehood. But because the masses don't think, they followed. And that propaganda still has a hold on our minds. There's nothing you do for the Igbo man to appease him. Go on, go on, go on. What did Gowon do? If you secede, there will be a war. In wars, soldiers kill each other across the divided land. And bombers and fighters bomb and strafe civilian positions. And people starve to death. Every war you look at today, you see people starving to death. People are starving to death in Syria, in Yemen. Everywhere there's war, people are starving to. So why did you expect your enemy to feed you? So we have these unrealistic expectations. And until we get them out of our minds, we'll remain there. We can't get them out of our minds easily. One, the Igbo elite that know better, don't want to speak. Because if you speak, they say you're sabo, you're a sellout, they've bought you, you are Hausa Fulani slave. So they're afraid of speaking. The masses themselves cannot read. If you read, you get the facts of what happened. So we remain in this, our quagmire. But Gowon owes the Igbos no apology. There was a war caused by Ojukwu's secession, and he fought the war for an ideal to unify Nigeria, for Nigerian unity. Nigeria has a lot of problems, but I remain unapologetically, unrepentantly a one-man Nigerian man.
Very, very true. Because it's very important that we understand, you know, where we're coming from, because that gives us that gusto to know where we are going to. Because if you must fight, of course you have to be ready. You have to have everything all sorted out in order for you, you know, to make it a great one.